Today we're going to take a look at the first couple of weeks of Donald Trump's presidency, because it's fair to say it's been eventful. Who's kidding? It's been fucking chaos. And we're going to start with this lovely little lady who thought it would be a good idea, as she was a preacher in the church that Donald Trump was in, to lecture the president, as you do.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
I don't understand. Donald Trump at no point has said, I'm coming for the gay, lesbian, and trans community. I'm going to kill you all. Like, why are they fearing for their life? I don't understand, woman.
The people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors.
And she's really hammering that immigration point home there, isn't she? And you think to yourself, maybe she's just got a really big heart. Or a really big wallet, as her ministry collected $53 million from government programs in 2023 for immigrant resettlement. So, of course you're in favour. You're making a fucking fortune out of it. She's living like Jay-Z. Do you know what I mean? I would be in favour of it if I was collecting that kind of cash too. So Trump is actually hurting her business. Now, she started off by accusing Trump of being a threat to the trans community, and I think we need to just readdress what he's actually said about trans people.
My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding.
I think this is a great idea to stop, teachers putting this on kids like that. We shouldn't even be talking to kids about this sort of shit, for Christ's sakes. Because kids are very malleable. They take on board information before they know it. They're a girl thinking they're a boy thinking they're a girl, when that idea might never have even come into their head if someone hadn't have put it there. And Donald Trump is also trying to put a stop to kids being able to have sex changes. I think it's a sensible thing to do, right? We're not even supposed to get tattoos when we're kids, let alone have things chopped off and make life-altering decisions that affect your mental health, your reproductive health. There's kids who, many of them later on, they want to change their mind and go back and they can't. I mean, it's fucking horrendous what goes on with these kids sometimes. When you're old enough, make all the decisions you want, do what you want, live how you want. But we need to protect children from this sort of thing. And he's also made it so that there's now only officially two genders, and that women, can't have men coming into their bathrooms, can't have men playing in their sports. And as you can imagine, there's some trans people who are a bit pissed off about it.
An executive order? An executive order? I'm sorry, well, who the hell do you think you are?
He's the president. Quite a big deal. He's got a lot of power. So he was voted in by a lot of people.
Your orders don't mean shit to me. Not a damn thing. The only thing you've done is bring back my genders of the day. And darling, today my gender is defiance. So why don't you take your executive order and shove it up your ass?
I understand, they've become quite accustomed to going into women's toilets and whatnot, but, I'm a live and let live kind of guy, right? If you're not harming anyone, do what the fuck you want. But, if I've got a daughter or a little baby sister, for example, and they're going into the toilet, I don't know if I'd want them going into a toilet with that person. By that logic of, I'm now a woman, I could just stuff a wig on, buy a dress, it would have to be a really big dress, and I could be in the women's toilet just wafting me cock around. That's mental. So I think that Trump isn't doing this to discriminate against people. He's doing it to protect people, actually. And women and children generally aren't protected enough.
It's me again. I can't get a passport right now.
The passports now have only allowed to have two genders on. I think previously they had made up ones, multiple ones. So yeah.
And little fun fact for you, in case you didn't know either. For people with gender markers that do not match their appearance, or the gender marker X that are trying to go through United States borders right now, they're being stopped.
We have to make sure that you've got the right gender on your passport so that in future that we can make sense of this, because the previous nonsense that was going on doesn't make any sense under the new rules that we've got.
Yo, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I gotta go to work like nothing's happening right now.
Nothing really is happening. Yeah, in future, you've got to have a letter on your passport to say, well, I was born this gender, but your life doesn't change in any way, shape or form. You hand your passport in, you get it back, you move forward. Nothing's changed. You're not a huge victim here. You know, you can still live like a woman. Not a problem, mate. Crack on, pal. Bro, geez, whatever we want to call you. You can live how you want. All we're saying is that we're not going to change medical science for you in that you were born one of the two genders. And we have to acknowledge that. Aside from that, live how you want, crack on. And yet he's acting like this is the end of the world. Everyone wants special treatment in 2025, don't they? Why? You still cry like a girl. I've got to be honest.
I need to relocate from Florida to New York as a refuge for safety.
What refuge for safety? What are you not safe from? Trump at no point said, you know what, if you see trans people, just shoot them if you want. It's fine, they're fair game. And that was never said.
It's so overwhelming. I don't know where to start.
Start at the beginning.
Just uprooting your life like this, you know, do you just go to New York and hope that the laws there protect you?
Protect you from what?
That what the government might do or make worse, the U.S. government.
Oh, this is what might happen, is it?
Or do you seek asylum in Canada?
Asylum? What the fuck are we talking about here? This is mental. That this is the reaction over one tiny little change in society. When like, do you remember how it's been for the last few hundred years? We're just going to go back to doing it like that again. You can still live like a woman, but officially we just need documentation change. Like, what are we doing here? Even Lady Gaga used her Grammy speech to go on a trans rights rant.
I just want to say tonight that trans people are not invisible.
Nobody said they were. If anything, they're very hard to miss, generally speaking. I don't know about yous, but I can always tell pretty much. But I'm happy for yous to live your truth or whatever, but you know, don't expect us to think it's the truth. That's all I'm saying.
Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up.
Actually, on that, the queer community have been lifted up all the way into the sky, and they're now flying helicopters. That brings us on to our next story. This is footage of an air accident. We've seen a helicopter fly directly into a plane. Just shocking stuff. Unfortunately, many lost their lives in this, including a whole bunch of children. It was a devastating accident. Now, Donald Trump, after the fact, linked it to DEI hires in his press conference.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
And look, when this first happened, I was watching this going, fuck me, mate. Like, you're politicizing an accident like this and taking aim at the Biden administration when people are grieving over the loss of their loved ones. It felt a bit insensitive from Trump, in my opinion. I think he could have gone about this in a better way. And he did get a lot of criticism online from it.
Once again, a time of national tragedy. Trump shows us what a despicable, unfit leader he is. I mean, families are still grieving. Trump's out here falsely blaming DEI. What's wrong with this guy?
Now, as it happens, the pilot who flew the helicopter into the plane was a woman, and actually, apparently, a lesbian as well. I guess you could say, for DEI purposes, that would be two boxes ticked, right? A woman and a gay person. Great, we got those two boxes ticked. That is generally some of the factors that they would look at in DEI. Now, where DEI becomes a problem is where you're looking at the performance of the person and ignoring the fact that they aren't as qualified as other people and pushing them forward because of the fact that they're a woman government or because of the fact that they're gay or whatever. Now, as it happens, she had 500 hours of training for flying the helicopter, and another pilot has spoken out about how insufficient this would have been to do what she was doing.
500 hours of flight time is so low, I wouldn't turn anybody loose in any of my airplanes at 500 hours with passengers for hire or flying anywhere near a major airport or anywhere else for that matter. I think, quite frankly, 500 hours is just barely adequate to get yourself up and back down safely. I really do. And the reason why I know that is because I was a 500-hour pilot at one time. And the time between when I got my pilot license and when I had my first major scare happens in that window, right? So somewhere between getting your pilot license and between 500 and 1,000 hours, something really sketchy is probably going to happen.
And there's an expert saying it, right? And as it happens, that the helicopter was alerted to the fact that it was about to collide with the aeroplane 2 separate occasions within the minutes leading up to that happening. So you're just like, and whether or not we can say Trump is definitively right or wrong, we can't, but it's everything's pointing to the fact that this girl should not have been in the position she was in. And really strangely, when this thing happens, normally the names of people are released immediately. It was this person flying, it was this person on board. Her name was held back for a long time, and it looks more and more sketchy when she's seen here pictured with Joe Biden. Apparently she was a social aide for their team. Now, I'm not actually sure how close that means she was with the Biden team, but still, it doesn't look great. And pretty much all of her social media seems to have been wiped from the internet. They've got a few pictures of her here at a pride thing. There she is at the White House. Do you know what I mean? But nothing else could be found. It was like she didn't even exist, which in the modern era is unheard of. And a lot of people suspect that what they did was they delayed announcing her name, scrubbed the social media because there was things about that would have been damning for the government, and then announced it once they'd done the cleanup operation. And Trump has come out and explained how aviation hiring has changed dramatically under Joe Biden.
The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing.
It really fucking is, though. Like, it's mind-blowing. There's a few things where I think we can, look at DEI and think, can we get some more diversity here? Is it going to impact anything? No, not really. Like, do we really need the best people for every job everywhere? Generally, yeah, but not always. There's a few parts of society I really don't want to be fucking with, right? Air travel is definitely one of them. I don't give a shit if my pilot is an old white dude. I just want him to be good.
Says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
Do you know what we need here? A few more disabled people, really, because we've just not got enough of them. That's not something I would even think of if I was in the airport, right, and we're doing air traffic control, a serious job here. You are so responsible for the lives of thousands of people every year. We can't have you in any way disabled, really. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe a little bit. Maybe if you just got a dodgy hand or something. I don't know. But fucking hell. I can't believe this is real life, man.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
Do you know who I would like flying my plane home from Ibiza? Someone with psychiatric problems, preferably, just to spice things up a bit. Will I make it home? Will I not? That's part of the fun on holiday. Oh, God almighty. It's gone crazy. And this was all a part of the Biden administration, yeah. And I know Trump gets a lot of hate, but fuck me. That is mental. Now, another interesting thing that happened when Trump became president was Elon Musk was actually confirmed as a Nazi. He's just weird, man. Even before the Nazi salute comes, he's absolutely weird as fuck.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
I mean, the my heart goes out to you afterwards kind of helps a little bit because he kind of does this and that, but he really threw that out there, right? He really went for like a baseball. Not a good look. It looked like a Nazi sign, right? It really did. Now, AOC, she just was never going to miss an opportunity to give her opinion on this. Here it is.
In this country, we hate Nazis. Kind of like a foundational defining thing. Two of probably the most foundational defining things about American history is that we beat the Confederates and we beat the Nazis. And I don't know what side people may be on today, but I still am not rocking with anyone sympathetic to Nazis.
So she's definitely convinced he's an absolute Nazi because of that hand signal. There is no debate. And interestingly, she's threw up a few hand signals of her own in the past. I mean, it's giving Nazi. It's giving I love Adolf Hitler, that right there. Yeah, she loves him. She is, oh, mate, she's loving it. She's throwing that right out. Also, while we're at it, Waltz, who was the right-hand man to Kamala, he's definitely a Nazi as well, actually. We got to watch out for him. Oh, and Barack Obama, George Bush, Hillary Clinton, and of course, Kamala. All have also done the same thing. So they're all Nazis. That's the way it is. Now, as it happens, even though Elon might be a confirmed Nazi, he actually seems to be doing some pretty good things for the American taxpayer by saving them quite a lot of money under the Department of Government Efficiency here, DOGE. I mean, for a start, they have gotten rid of DEI-related contracts worth $1 billion. How can anyone spend that much money on DEI? That is mental. So he might be a Nazi, but at least he's good with money. Now, another part of the government Elon has been looking into is USAID. Now, this was set up in the 60s under JFK, and the official explanation of what it does, it dispenses billions of dollars annually across the world in an effort to alleviate poverty, treat diseases, respond to famines and natural disasters, and also promotes democracy building and development. And here's a little video of kind of how it works across the years, right? They get billions and billions of dollars and they're just giving it out. And it's amazing. You know, we've got the little flags there of all these people, of all these countries, of how much money they're getting given over the years. And you just fast forward it here. By 2023, you've got over 100 billion to Afghanistan, nearly 100 billion to Israel, Iraq, Egypt. And obviously Ukraine has gone significantly higher since this video was made. And yet all other countries, 273 billion and a whole bunch of other billions down the bottom. Like, this is a huge amount of money that this company within government is given to put across the world. And you'd think to yourself, I mean, it's awfully charitable, but also, I mean, if it's doing a lot of good, then good, great. I'm not sure the American taxpayer would feel that way when they know how much money they're getting taxed on things and people are just being charitable with other countries. But there's stories that tell us, is it really there to just help countries out? Now, in this interview, JFK explains how they funded riots in the Ukraine to upset the apple cart over there and to topple a democratically elected government in Ukraine because they didn't want them in. Americans didn't want them. The CIA didn't want them in. They wanted their own guys who would go along with what they wanted to do it. And there's literally leaked calls from a woman called Victoria Nuland working with the US ambassador in Ukraine, and she's hand selecting who's going to be in the new government. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not very democratic, is it? We're all worried about democracy in America now, aren't we? We're all worried about it. So it's crystal clear that this money is not just being used to help famine. It's to further the power, as always. It destabilizes foreign governments, it funds coups, it actually funds terrorist groups as well, by the looks of it. And not just that, it apparently also funds dangerous little labs that research viruses in China. USAID funneled 53 million to EcoHealth Alliance, which used US taxpayer funds to support gain-of-function research on coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab. This research is likely what led to the creation of COVID-19, meaning the American taxpayers paid for that shit to impact their country and the rest of the world. Insane. And the guy behind all of this was Fauci, apparently, who was given fucking 24-hour limo service and God knows how much money. Now, naturally, Elon Musk and Doge wanted to have a little look and see what the fuck has been going on at USAID, and initially they were refused access by security leaders there. Since then, those people have been gotten shot of, and Elon Musk has explained what he really thinks of the situation on audio call on Twitter.
As we dug into USAID, it became apparent that what we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a bowl of worms. And so at the point at which you don't merely, like, if you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a bowl of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a bowl of worms.
That's a good analogy. And it just makes you really understand how much the American taxpayers, and taxpayers in all countries, especially the UK, we're getting made fools of. And they are just taking the absolute piss with our money to a point where they're funding things that actually actively kill us. That is nuts. And one of the ways that Trump is trying to better help the taxpayer in America is with these tariffs that he's introducing to other countries who want to do trading with America. He's basically going to tack 25% on to whatever you want to sell in America for the privilege of it, because America is such a huge market that to even operate there is a privilege. And if a company doesn't want to pay those tariffs, it can just move to America, build things in America, and then sell them in America, and you won't get those tariff charges, which will then create more jobs for the people of America, you know, potentially. And although initially, because people are having to relocate their businesses to America, there may be a price increase on certain products due to the fact that people can't immediately, you know, move everything to America. In the long term, this potentially, and I don't know, but it could help the American taxpayer bring down the cost of products because it's all in American and getting circulated in America. And then also, the fact that you're placing tariffs on other countries to sell things in America is getting more money to the economy again. Now, again, I don't know if this is going to fucking work, but one country that is in particular trouble with this scenario, it seems, is Canada.
Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there.
And Trump has been very vocal on the fact that they are very lax on immigration there, and a lot of people are coming into America through Canada, and there's drug issues as well because they just don't seem to give a fuck. And he's put it to them, and he says, look, we've been asking them to sort this out, and we're done asking. And now we're just going to kind of punish you a bit for this shit. Now, the impact of this was felt pretty quickly as the Canadian dollar fell to the lowest level since 2003 when compared against the American dollar. Trump has given Canada the option of becoming the 51st state of America, but it doesn't look like they're really considering that.
I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
So he's basically fighting fire with fire there. He said on a tweet, now is the time to choose products made right here in Canada. Check the labels, let's do our part, choose Canada. It might be quite a desperate thing, to be honest, to get into a dick measuring contest with America when America has a bigger dick than you, Canada. And someone's made this meme to kind of sum up the power struggle that we're seeing right now, because as much as I'm not an expert on this, it is quite obvious from everything I've looked at that Canada needs America more than America needs Canada. And this could cause some serious shit for their country. Now, as I'm recording this video, the president of Canada has just put a tweet out saying that Canada is now agreeing to some of the terms America had, which is implementing a whole new border plan with $1.3 billion, reinforcing it with new choppers, technology, and 10,000 frontline personnel to protect the border. And not just that, they're also investing $200 million in tackling the organized crime and the fentanyl problem, which fentanyl is coming through Canada into America, killing a lot of people. It's a fucking disaster. Now, on the one hand, this is a pretty big win for Donald Trump, in my opinion, and he's also done a similar thing with Mexico, where he's gotten them to sort the border out and actually help him out in protecting the American border. However, he was the one who sold the tariffs as the thing, and as part of this agreement, he's actually agreeing to pause the tariffs and not implement them. And when you've told everyone how great they are and how they're going to be game-changing for America, and then all of a sudden you're agreeing to go back on that, it just leaves a bit of confusion, and I'm interested to see if he will still implement these tariffs or not. Because if he doesn't, well, then why did you tell us they were going to be so great? It doesn't add up. And now, a word from our sponsors. Now, I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, from Saudi Arabia to LA, and I know a lot of you've got travel plans for 2025, and there is one app that you have to download, and that app is Saily. Now, Saily is a brand new eSIM service app, and what it does is it gives you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans for over 160 countries and 8 regions, so wherever you're going, they're going to be able to make sure you're connected. Now, all you've got to do is click the link in the description below, and you can download the app to iOS or Android. Then you buy your plan, just choose the best time frame for you. Then you just install the eSIM on your phone, and when you land at your destination, you can activate your plan instantly. And with Saily, your eSIM only ever has to be installed once. So after each trip, you can turn the eSIM off, and then when your next one comes along, you buy a new plan for where you're going, switch your eSIM back on, and boom, you're back in business. And what I love about Saily is that when I went to LA, the eSIM for them was actually faster than the hotel Wi-Fi. And obviously when I left the hotel, I didn't have to worry about not having any Wi-Fi and all of that nonsense because I was constantly connected. So what you're waiting for, get sorted for your next trip away by clicking the link in the description below and downloading Saily now. Just go to saily.com/Geordie and use the code Geordie, all block capitals, all one word, to get 15% off your first purchase. And a big thanks to Saily for keeping us connected on our travels, but for now, enjoy the video. And another thing that's caused a little bit of controversy in the first couple of weeks of Trump's presidency is immigration, and J.D. Vance has been speaking out on it.
But there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders.
Stop talking about my prime minister that way. Nah, you're right. You're right. That is so true. And America, putting Americans first, does not offend me in any way. Even though I'm from the UK, it might impact our country a little bit. Fair play to them. They've got every right to. They should be looking after their own people first. That's just common sense. And I don't understand how they've subverted this so much to make that such a bad thing. So selfish. I mean, when people of your own country are homeless and struggling and you've got serious issues within your own country, I think, yeah, sort yourselves out, and then if you got a bit left over, help the rest of the world out. That's all good. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, that philosophy. But in this interview, the woman who's interviewing really tries to put it on him that it's out of order that they're getting rid of some of these illegal immigrants.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
And I just love the fact that he just shot her down. That bullshit. I don't care, Margaret. If these people can allow a terrorist in, then the vetting process clearly isn't fucking working. And if you love them so much, how about you pay for them? Because that's what you're asking the American taxpayer to do. You're also generous with other people's money, aren't you? And I like the fact that he said, look, I wouldn't want this for my kids, so therefore I don't want it for the American people. How often do we really say that from a politician? I'm not saying he's a perfect politician, but it's nice to just hear some common sense.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country
This is a
founded
unique
by
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
She just got bodied. Did you hear what he said, Margaret? He said, your opinion is dumb as shit. And I don't know how any of this is in the least bit controversial, because if you look at what the American people, what the people of Europe are constantly trying to vote for, even though they never get given it, is controlled immigration, because they want to know who's coming in, what are they bringing to the table, are our streets safe, you know. That's just perfectly normal. And Trump has actually touched on like how dangerous some of these people they've been letting in are.
We also have many violent criminals in our country, however, that did not necessarily come here illegally, but have been arrested 30 times, 35 times, 41, 42 times in a couple of cases, 25 times, 18 times, many for murder and other heinous charges such as pushing people into subways. As the train's coming along at 45 miles an hour, boom, you get pushed into the subway. They had it last week. Hitting them in the head with baseball bats while they're not looking, punching old ladies in the face, knocking them unconscious and stealing their purse. They even break into apartments and rape elderly women and beat up elderly men, beat them to hell. And I don't want these violent repeat offenders in our country any more than I want illegal aliens from other countries who misbehave.
Honestly, that's just common sense, isn't it? There's nothing bad about what he's saying there. If you're from another country and you're fortunate enough to make it to a country where you can have a better life for yourself, the bare minimum expectation for that privilege should be behave. If you misbehave, get the fuck out. Just like if you come into someone's house, you start shit, you get thrown out. It's just common sense. There's nothing controversial about that. And it's funny because these deportations have started and they've tried to send a bunch of criminals back to Colombia who refused the plane access to the runway, I think. And Trump immediately, he just starts threatening them. I'm going to impose tariffs, etc. I'll be raising it to 50% if things don't change. Travel ban immediately, visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters, visa sanctions on all party members, family members and supporters of the Colombian government. And immediately there's a response from the president of Colombia who said, oh, sorry about that. We'll be sending our presidential plane to come and pick them up. We're sorry for the inconvenience there. Lo and behold, being a strong leader fucking works. I'm not saying Trump's getting everything right here, by the way, but in that scenario, he did everything right. He then posts this picture to his social media with a fuck around and find out caption. And it's a sign of strength. It's a little bit immature, right? It's Trump, man. He can be this way. We all know this, right? But I'd rather have a president or a leader of a country who's a little bit immature at times and a little bit rude, but who's acting in the best interest of the people, generally speaking, and is showing strength to other countries. Like, you can't take the piss. And all the people working in this country aren't here to fund all of you motherfuckers. They're here to put back into the system that's supposed to look after them. Their government. However, billionaire Selena Gomez doesn't seem to agree with the situation with immigration over in America. She's come out and she's gotten quite emotional.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. Children.
They're actually finding a lot of the missing children from the border issue they had. But when she says her people, I think she means the Mexicans. Her dad, I think, was Mexican. He left her when she was a kid, never had nothing to do with her. Her mother, who was American, raised her in America. But never, you don't let that get in the way of, some virtue signaling online.
I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't.
Well, you're a billionaire. So if anyone can do anything, you probably could. I'm sure you could help fund all sorts of things for people if you really want to help. Get yourself out there. You've got your wallet. Now use it. But oh no, you don't want to do that, do you? You want to get on your social media and make people think you're such a lovely person and then go back to your tennis lessons. Do you know what I mean? That's an ugly cry face, by the way. I'm not loving it. And a teacher has actually released a video said what she'll do if people try and come for her students.
ICE can now raid classrooms. And as a high school teacher, I just want to make one thing clear. If someone tries to come in my classroom and take one of my students, one of us isn't leaving the classroom. Play with me.
Little aggressive, isn't it? Saying that, it sort of makes a little bit more sense when you watch this video.
Okay, so I got a crazy story from my first year as a transgender teacher.
It makes sense now. And what's funny is a lot of the left are obviously criticizing Trump for his stance on immigration, and yet these are the same people who were supporting Barack Obama when he was speaking out about immigration.
This administration, the Bush administration, has done nothing to control the problem that we have. We've had 5 million undocumented workers come over the borders since George Bush took office. It has become an extraordinary problem. And the reason the American people are concerned is because they are seeing their own economic position slip away. And oftentimes, employers are exploiting these undocumented workers. They're not paying the minimum wage. They're not observing worker safety laws. And so what we have to do is create a comprehensive solution to the problem. Now, I have already stated that as president, I will make sure that we finally have the kind of border security that we need. That's step number one. Step number two is to take on employers. Right now, an employer has more of a chance of getting hit by lightning than be prosecuted for hiring an undocumented worker.
You get the point. The guy clearly had a very similar stance on it to Donald Trump. But now all of a sudden, it's oppression. Back then, it was common sense. And the guy in charge of cleaning up the border of America and actually tackling a lot of this is Tom Homan. And he's been called a racist. He's been called all sorts of things. And he gave a pretty emphatic reply.
Tom Homan's a racist. Tom Homan's a Say whatever you want. I don't give a Why do I care? I care because I stood in the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead aliens that suffocated and baked to death, including a 5-year-old little boy that died in his father's arms. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 years old that were raped multiple times by criminal cartels. They're animals. When you look into a little girl's eyes, 9 years old, and who had adults take everything innocent and pure from her, you look in those eyes, and those eyes have no life in them. Her life will never be the same. That's what me off.
I mean, if anything, I'm motivated to fucking clean up a situation. It's stories like that. And I think that's something that people overlook is who are the biggest casualties when it's the Wild West and unregulated and anyone can get away with anything. It's children, because they don't have a voice, they don't have the ability to look after themselves. And they're the ones who are human trafficked, etc. So, you know, hopefully that is a situation that it just gets better, because the amount of people they said were missing, or children were missing, like they couldn't locate the documentation of them and stuff like that, it was in the hundreds of thousands. And another thing Donald Trump has received a lot of criticism on is the pardons for the J6 protest / insurrection, whatever you want to call it, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. Now, we can't forget the fact that Joe Biden preemptively pardoned the committee who conducted the investigation into what happened that day. And again, it's another one of those Biden pardons that you're like, why are you pardoning people if they've done nothing wrong and everything's all above board here? Why would you need to do that? Oh, I'm just worried that Trump's going to go after them. Well, if there's nothing on them, you don't have to worry about anything, do you? Oh, okay, that's how it works. Yeah. We're talking about officers who testified under oath, which is supposed to mean something. You know, what happened here? So when you're pardoning people who testified, you're like, well, were they lying then? Because you're sort of you're making me think that they might have been. I wasn't really thinking about that before, but now you've planted the idea. It's like walking into a fucking courtroom going, I'm not guilty! Like, everyone's gonna think, probably guilty then, aren't you? And you've got like Kash Patel saying that Nancy Pelosi was offered the help of the National Guard, but rejected it. And you're like, why would you reject it if this was a really bad situation, unless you wanted it to be really bad and get even worse, potentially, because you were then going to use it as a political tool to beat Donald Trump with. I'm not saying that's totally true, but it just looks bad. And then you've got like tampering with the witnesses by Liz Cheney, who also has been pardoned preemptively. Just so happens.
That's an interesting take from a congresswoman who appears to have been influencing the J6 committee's star witness, Cassidy Hutchinson. Oh, it doesn't get any better than this. Text messages show Cheney back-channeling with Alyssa Farah Griffin, the annoying chick from The View, in spring 2022. An effort to communicate with Cassidy behind her own attorney's back. Alyssa Farah serving as the communication liaison for the pair. Then this exchange between Cheney and Hutchinson directly arranging a direct phone call that Congressman Barry Loudermilk alleges was to sway her testimony.
She was clearly operating in a dirty, underhanded way. And if we're led to believe everything that was claimed about J6 was as was claimed, why would you need to do that? And like the fact that apparently there was FBI guys within the protests apparently making it worse than what the regular protesters were. Just all of this puts such a dark cloud over it that I just don't know what to fucking believe, to be honest with you. And that's not me, doing a cop-out because I'm trying to defend Donald Trump here, because I'm not defending Trump. Because I know that there was like police officers who were hurt, who were injured. I think one female police officer had a brain injury even. I don't think you should pardon people who've hurt law enforcement, because you're setting a bad example. You got to be tough on crime, especially when it's against police officers. So if he's pardoned anyone, and it's very vague because it's quite a blanket pardon, and I'm assuming that he has pardoned people who've been violent against, police officers, whatever. I don't agree with that. I don't think he's done the right thing there at all. But I also see accounts from people who were just peaceful protesters, who were, overly punished so badly and treated really horrendously in jail and stuff like that. They can be pardoned. I don't really mind that because, as much as people try to hype this up as an insurrection, you see people just walking through the halls with no guns out, no one taking over shit. You know what I mean? They were just quite peaceful, a lot of these people. And I've seen the footage of some people being violent too, and for them people, they shouldn't be pardoned, right? I think I've made that quite clear. But this was so politicized, it's hard to know what the fuck is true, and I think that's the only way I can look at this. At least they have been punished. And that's one thing we can't say for Trump, is he didn't know any of these people, and they have actually served some time and faced some form of justice. With Joe Biden, what he is doing is making sure the people he knows personally, who he knows are up to no good, will never face justice. And that is far more corrupt. And I know a lot of people are getting on my back in one of the last videos saying, oh, you haven't mentioned the January 6th thing. I hope this is fair enough for you guys, because I think that is fair. Is Trump being a bit corrupt here and letting some people out who are violent? I think so. It's not on. It's out of order. But what Biden's doing is seriously dark. Anyway, let me know what you think of everything I've covered in this video in the comments below. Appreciate all your support. Let me know if there's anything you want me to cover in future. I really love hearing what you want us to talk about. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the True Geordie YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next one.